It is my pleasure this evening to introduce Connie Cheney, who has been doing other classes live, and both she and her husband are helping us so much. We do appreciate them. And this is a fun class, and it's to give you options, and the instruction we do is all about options.
Thank you, Jim, and it's my pleasure to be here. I am excited to be able to present grab-and-go meals. You may know them by other names. They're sometimes called bag meals, meals in a bag, something that you can grab and go with. Why would we use grab-and-go meals? Well, one of the biggest time savers that I found is when it's 5 o'clock, I start thinking about what am I going to have for dinner. It would be better if I thought about it earlier in the day, but most of the time I don't think about it until 5 o'clock. And that's getting to be really close to dinner time. Now, a really easy thing to do is to jump in the car, or as you're on your way home, to stop somewhere and get takeout. But if you knew that you could take one of these meals out of your pantry and have dinner ready in sometimes 10, 15, 20 minutes, you're going to have a much more nutritious, definitely less expensive, and oftentimes quicker than if you were to go through to get takeout. In our neighborhood, we have lots of babies being born, and we have people that have health issues. They have been having surgery, but we have most of it's babies, and it's really nice to be able to take some meal to one of the neighbors who has a need, whether they are not able to fix the dinner themselves, or to be able to offer a meal if they have a new baby. And one of the nice things about the grab-and-go meals is you don't have to make it and take it hot. You can actually take it in the bag and let them use it at another time when maybe they don't have quite as many meals in the refrigerator left over, but it would be there and available for them to make on their own. Another reason that you might want to use a grab-and-go meal is if you are not able to get home in time for dinner, and your kids and maybe sometimes your hubby, or if the hubby does the cooking, then it would be the wife, not knowing what to cook. Think about, does everyone in your family know how to assemble the meals from your food storage, or are you the only one that really knows what to do with it? If you have these meals in your pantry, you have the recipe right in the bag with the ingredients, everything's there. It's easy, and it's something that anyone can do, even the kids. They also make great gifts for a bridal shower or one of the kids that's going off to college. Then kind of the reason that most people would think that you might use a grab-and-go meal is if you have to evacuate your home. And they are very good for that. You can grab them. The only thing that you would need would be to add some water and a cooking pot, a source of fuel, some of the things all of the ingredients, everything that you would need for the meal, with the exception of maybe some water, would be in the bag. So it would make a nice way to be able to grab some meals in a hurry and know that you weren't going to leave some important ingredient behind. Next, we're going to talk about how we would get started. The first thing you want to do is create a menu. And you want to just start really simple, start with 1 week, and you want to think about the things that your family likes to eat. Most families have about 10 favorite meals that they will rotate through the month. So you can think through, just start on a paper, list the things that are the meals that you most frequently make. If you don't have any ideas, or you're just looking for some new ideas, you can use some of our suggestions and go from there. You want to make sure you include breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Also, if you eat snacks, you want to include those as well. And you want to include a variety of the foods that you're eating, because if you eat the same types of foods every day, you can get what's called appetite fatigue, and you won't want to eat. When we first started to do the grab-and-go meals, a lot of my meals were bean-based. They were different meals, but it would be like bean enchiladas, then bean burritos, then chili, then taco soup. And after, I don't even think we made it a week, we didn't want to eat them anymore because they were all, even though they had different seasonings, it needed a little more variety than just having them all bean. And so you would probably not want to do all chicken either. So you want to make sure that you do get some variety. Now you can just make some squares, or you can just draw some columns on a piece of paper, and then you just want to start filling in the boxes. A good way to do this is, maybe you can't think of what you usually eat. I know I have a hard time if I'm trying to make a menu for the week. I can't even remember what I like to cook. So you might want to just keep it nearby, and as you make meals during the week, start filling in what you're having and just add them into the boxes or onto your list on your paper. As you go throughout the week, you just fill in the different things that you're eating or things that maybe you would like to eat. Then you might have to convert or adapt some of the favorites so that they use the food storage. Now, when you're converting fresh ingredients, you would want to try to use freeze-dried first, that you're going to get the best nutrition with freeze-dried. Then next would be dehydrated, and then the next would be canned. The canned foods have a little less nutrition in them than the freeze-dried or dehydrated, but sometimes cost or availability makes it so that you would use some of the others. I do use canned for some things, and one thing I like about canned is that you're also getting the liquid that you can use if your water is short. And you need to simplify your cooking instructions. I do this most of the time when I'm cooking anyway, because I like to do things fast and I don't like to make a lot of mess and use lots of dishes. But the one-pot meals are going to be much easier to clean up, and you'll use less resources, your fuel, your soap for cleaning, etc. So you want to do it as simply as possible. And you want to try some other cooking methods as well. You might want to learn how to use a sun oven, or you might want to use a Dutch oven with charcoal briquettes, or you might want to do the Wonder Box, which is one of we did a class last Saturday on using the Wonder Box. So there are other ways of being able to cook so that you're not having to use your fuel resources, and that you can make them go as far as possible. Now there's a few of the conversion equivalents that I have listed here. 1 clove of garlic, you can do garlic powder. It's about 1/8 of a teaspoon. 1 medium chopped onion is 1/4 cup dried onion plus 1/4 cup of water. And you can either rehydrate the onion by soaking the dried onion in the water for about 15 or 20 minutes, or you can just mix it in. If it's something that has liquid and it's going to cook for at least 15 or 20 minutes, you don't even have to rehydrate it, because it will rehydrate during the cooking process. You can do that with all of your dehydrated or freeze-dried vegetables. 1 medium potato is 1/2 cup of dried plus 3/4 cup water. 1 medium carrot is 1/4 cup dried carrots and 1/2 cup of water. 1 celery stalk is 1 tablespoon of dried celery plus 2 tablespoons of water. 1 cup of milk is 3 tablespoons of non-instant powdered milk plus 1 cup of water. If you're using instant milk, I believe it's a little bit less milk. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I use non-instant. And the main reason that I use non-instant is because you can use non-instant powdered milk to make cheese from the powdered milk, especially if the milk has gotten old and has an old taste or smell. You can actually use that powdered milk to make cheese, and the old taste and old smell, it goes down the drain with the whey. when you rinse it, but you can only use the non-instant. You can't use instant for that. 1 whole egg is 1 tablespoon of dried whole egg plus 3 tablespoons of water. 1/2 pound of ground beef is 1 pint. If you can it yourself, which you can do in a pressure canner, you can brown the meat and put it in the jars and pressure can it. You have to make sure that it's a pressure canner and not a water bath canner, because otherwise it wouldn't be safe. But in a pressure canner, it would be safe. This is nice to have on your shelf. And also, if you had meat in your freezer and your power went off, you could, if you had a propane stove or a Camp Chef or something, you could can the meat that's in your freezer so that you wouldn't lose it. 1 pound of bacon is equal to 3-ounce jar of real bacon pieces. And this is the real bacon pieces, not the bacon bits. 1 2/3 cup cooked chicken breast is a 12-ounce can of chicken. 2 1/2 cup shredded cheese is about 8-ounce can of cheese. It's 7.97, but it's pretty close to 8 ounces. That's the canned cheese that comes, I believe it's from New Zealand. It's a great product. It tastes good, and it doesn't need refrigeration until after. If it's open, then you would need to refrigerate it if you don't eat it all. But it is very tasty. You'd probably eat it all in one meal. 1 cup of sugar is equivalent to 1/2 cup of honey. Honey is more sweet than sugar. And reduce the liquid in the recipe by 2 tablespoons if you're substituting honey for sugar. And then 1 cup of white flour is equivalent to 7/8 cup whole wheat flour. I don't do that anymore. I just substitute 1 cup for 1 cup. If a recipe calls for white flour and it says 1 cup, I just use 1 cup. Occasionally I'll have to put a little more liquid in because the whole wheat flour does absorb a little more liquid than the white flour does. So this shows you the difference between the recipes, the original recipe that I have on the top left for chicken enchiladas. It's using fresh chicken that's cooked, fresh onion, the Colby Jack cheese, sour cream. So when I converted this, I used the canned chicken. I get the canned chicken at Costco, at the 12-ounce cans of chicken there. I still have the cream of chicken soup and the green chilies. I have used evaporated milk because I'm not using sour cream. I did try sour cream powder. I did not like the taste. Some people might like it. I tried it in several different recipes. I tried to disguise it. I just didn't like it, so I gave up with that. I've also, I know some people will take their evaporated milk and put a little vinegar in it to give it the sour cream taste or texture. I didn't like that either. I guess I'm just a sour cream purist. So I just gave up with the sour cream, and the evaporated milk works just fine for me. I do use the regular evaporated milk. I don't do the skim just because I feel like that I might need to have a little bit extra fat. Jim teaches us that in the winter it's a good idea to have a little more of the fat in your diet, and so I have now decided that I'm preparing for winter emergencies in the middle of a blizzard, in the middle of January, in the middle of the night, and so I'm using the fat milk rather than the skim milk. I've used the dry onion, the chopped dry onion, and then the cumin is the same. And I have a recipe for making whole wheat tortillas that I put on the back side of this recipe, and the ingredients for making those would also be in the bag with the enchilada recipe. So it's pretty easy to do. Sometimes you have to think it through a little bit of what could I use or how could I change this. Your recipes might be a little different. Of course, it's not going to taste exactly the same when you use the evaporated milk instead of sour cream, because sour cream has a wonderful taste and it's not quite as good as the evaporated milk, but it's similar. And if you take the canned cheese and you grate that and put that over the top, you still get that cheesy flavor, even though it's not the Mexican Colby Jack cheese. It's going to be similar, not exactly the same, but similar enough, and it does taste good. Then after you have some favorites, that you're going to multiply the menu so that you cover the whole year. So this is how I figured out how I was going to cover for the full year. You may want to do it differently, but this idea worked for me. Started with the 365 days that are in the year, and then I subtracted 90 days because I have 90 days of ready-to-eat meals. Those are meals that do not require any cooking. I can just eat them cold if I have to. They don't require, it's pretty much open the can or open the package. They're just ready so that if there is an emergency situation that is pretty high stress, I have 90 days that I don't have to worry about doing a lot of cooking, and that will give me time to be able to transition to the situation. Now, if you do the ready-to-eat meals, you also want to follow the same process where you figure out the ingredients that you need and multiply it out for the full 90 days. So after I've subtracted the 90 days from the 365 days, it leaves me with 275 days. Now, I have come up with 21 different meals, so I'm going to divide that by 21. I would suggest that you try to get at least 14. 7 did not work. After 7 different meals, even when they were not all dry bean related meals, I needed a little bit more variety. So I would suggest you try to come up with 14. I have expanded it to 21, and I like 21. It works really well for me. There's a little bit room to go as I gather other recipes. I'm always on the lookout for recipes that I can convert to making a grab-and-go meal with it, and I may end up expanding it to even more. If you do 21 meals, then you will be having that meal 13 times during the year. So it's just a matter of doing the math. If you have 14, then you would have to have each meal more times. So the more variety you have, the less times you're going to be repeating that same meal throughout the year. Then you're going to fill out your expanded menu plan for the whole year. And I have a sample here to show you. This is kind of what my chart looks like, and it has a lot of information on it. It kind of reminds me of what I'm doing and the areas that I still need to work on. In the top left corner, it says a 1-year supply to be rotated in 2 years. Because this is using canned foods, you don't want to just put them in the bags and let them sit somewhere. You do need to eat them. You do need to rotate them. You can't just let them sit in the closet or in the pantry. But you don't necessarily want to eat them every day. But you do want to be able to rotate it and keep things fresh. So I have found that I could do this by having them about 3 times a week. Then I would be able to rotate this through in 2 years. Down below on the left, it shows breakfast. There's our standard breakfast for the 275 days is something that we eat every day for breakfast. Well, we used to eat it every day for breakfast. Now that we've had Caleb Warnick has taught me how to make the natural yeast waffles, we've been having those every day for breakfast. But one of our standbys is a banana oatmeal shake, which is basically powdered milk, rolled oats, frozen banana, and water. And it satisfies till lunchtime. The ready-to-eat breakfast that we have for our 90 days, we have 20 days that is for granola bars that are really easy. You just open the package and eat them. That would be for about 3 weeks, and then we have just oatmeal with raisins. I take the oatmeal and put it in a blender so that it gets a little bit fine. Mix it with powdered milk, some raisins, some cinnamon, and then all you do is add some hot water to it and then let it sit. Put it in a Ziploc bag. I use the freezer Ziploc bags, and let it sit inside your shirt or under a towel, and it makes you a nice hot breakfast, and you don't have to use a lot of cooking pots or a lot of fuel. Then the next 3 columns are my dinner columns, and you can see it says times by 13. So there's 21 meals here. Each one would be 13 times. And there's a column, the 4th column over is the ready to eat column. Now I've only come up with 4 ready to eat meals that I really like. I want to expand that to at least 3 more, but with having just the 4, then that means I have to have each one 23 times, which is not a lot of variety, so I still need to work on that. As you can see, I don't have anything in the dessert snack section or column. We don't typically eat desserts or snacks, but I will be adding some in there just because it would be a good thing to have under stressful situations, and also when you're going to need more energy. Now I do have a column to the very right that says salad for 275 days. We like to have a fresh salad with at least one of our meals, and having fresh vegetables might be an option if you are at home and you have a garden. You might be able to have salad ingredients. If not, if it's wintertime or you're not able to be at home, there's the option of having sprouts, which would make a very good salad. You could just eat the sprouts by themselves, or you could add some kind of dressing. We had planned to have our main meal as a dinner meal, and then for a supper for the 275 days, we love peanut butter sandwiches. And so we just have decided that that's what we would do, is a peanut butter sandwich with milk and some fruit. The fruit would be either canned, that we have canned in the fall, or we do have some dehydrated and some freeze-dried fruit. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what we have done, and you would want to do something very similar. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to stock your storage room. So you want to make a list of all the recipe ingredients from all of the meals that you have come up with that are on your list, and then you calculate the amount that is needed for a year. Now here's an example of one way that you can do it by making, on the left is the recipe for one meal, and then on the right it's multiplied out for the amount that you would need to make that 13 times. And you can do this on just a simple graph paper, or even a piece of blank paper, and make lines where you have all the ingredients listed on the left, and then multiply it over so that you would be able to have the ingredients that you would need to make that as many times as you needed it for the year. Another way that you can do this is by using the food storage calculator, which I really like. It's a software program, and I have really enjoyed using it. I don't sell it. I bought it. I recommend it because I think it's great. It will calculate exactly what you need for your family, not only food, but also it has equipment lists and paper type products, etc. So it calculates all the types of things you would need for storage. It's customizable for an individual's needs, gender, age, so that it's you can get pretty accurate with it. It does come with some recipes, but you can also add your own recipes. It links your recipes to your storage room list so that as you would know in your storage room if you have the ingredients that you need for each one of your recipes and how much that you have. It kind of keeps track, it keeps an inventory for you. It gives you expiration dates, shopping lists, tracks your inventory. There's a number of different reports you can do so that you can keep track and make sure that you get things rotated properly and and what you need to buy when you go to the store. You can get a group discount. I don't know if that's something that we would try to do here, but I do know that they do offer that. And the website is foodstorageplanner.com. So this is just a look at the screenshots from what this is what it looks like. On the left is my recipe for chicken enchiladas, and you can see, I don't know how well you can see, but in the ingredients in the middle, you can see there's a little green check mark. That means that I have the ingredients in my storeroom to be able to make that particular meal. And on the right is the storeroom showing how much of the cream of mushroom soup there is, when it was purchased, how much is there, how much I've used. So it's pretty handy as long as you keep it updated. If you don't update it, it doesn't work. But if you keep it updated, it works really well. So now that you've got your food and you've figured out what you want for your recipes, you've got the food in your storage room, now you're going to create your grab-and-go meals. First thing you want to do is to print your recipes, because you want to have a recipe for the meal in each one of the bags. You don't want to have to be going to a book or find the paper where the recipe is, or to go to your computer. You want the recipe right in the bag with the meal. Now, I've used colored paper so that I can see at a glance what food category it is. For example, pink I put for chicken, orange for legumes, yellow for pork, green for cheese, blue for seafood, and gray for beef. This way I can, and the bags I have are a little bit see-through, so I can actually see by the color of the card if I'm getting a chicken meal, and if I don't have to really look to see what the bag is. I just know if I had chicken yesterday, I don't necessarily want to pick a bag that has a pink card in it. And that helps me to be able to have a little bit variety, but it works really well for me. You may want to try that. And I've also found that the recipes, I did them first on cardstock, and they don't keep their shape when you put them in a bag and you've got cans and you're moving them around. They get a little bit distorted, a little bit crinkled. Sometimes they get bent. So I did find some plastic protective sheets that are the size of the recipe. It's about a half sheet of paper that helps keep it from getting ruined in the bag, plus it protects it from spills. And then, of course, you're going to do your meals in the bags with the recipes. Now, here's a picture on the left that shows the different colors of the paper for the recipe. So this is 6 different recipes. There's a chicken recipe, a legume recipe, a cheese recipe, a pork recipe, pork then cheese, then fish, then beef. And you want to try and we have probably, I think I added them up. I think there's 7 legume recipes, 4 chicken, 4 beef, 2 pork, 2 cheese, and 2 fish. I think that's about the combination that we have right now. And it does change as I find recipes that I like better than some of my other ones, the ones that end up staying in the pantry the longest, and I think, oh, I don't want to have that one. I usually say, okay, that one gets crossed off the list, and we try to add another one. If the favorites, as soon as I put them in the pantry for about a month at a time, I do like the 21 meals. I put them all in bags. Takes maybe a couple of hours to pull everything, measure all the spices and all the ingredients, put them all in the bags, and put them in the pantry. And usually the real favorite ones come out first, and then that's how I kind of find whether or not the meal is something that I'm really going to want to eat in a stressful emergency situation. If it sits on that shelf and I don't want to eat it, and it's the last one there, and it's been there for a week or two, and I know that I can't go and get new ones until that one's been eaten, that one usually doesn't get done for the next the next go around. I use those ingredients for something else. Now on the right is a picture of the bags that I use. They're kind of see-through, which I like. You can use the paper bags. You can use, for most of them, I could use the Ziploc gallon bags, which I used for quite a while. There were just a few of the meals that all of the ingredients wouldn't fit in the Ziploc gallon bag, but most of them do. So you can use any kind of bag. I like the bag with handles. The Ziploc bags worked. I like those because I could close them, and I knew that if they fell off the shelf in an earthquake, then all of the ingredients wouldn't come tumbling out of the open bag. So you might want to think about some of those options. And then the plastic sheets that I found to put the recipe in, they are pretty heavy. They're a really heavy plastic. These are the 21 meals that I have right now, and this shows the recipe in the back, and then it shows the ingredients. This is the chicken corn chowder, so we've got corn, chicken, green chilies, and the evaporated milk. And then in the little packet, the little Ziploc bag, is the dried onion and the seasonings are all in that little Ziploc bag. And for this recipe, I don't believe there's even, you don't have to even put water. You just open up all the cans and dump it in a pot and just heat it until it gets hot. So it's pretty easy and it's very tasty. This recipe is Kodiak cakes and fried Spam. We like to eat the Kodiak cakes much more often than we do now that we are eating the natural leavened yeast waffles. That's kind of pushed the Kodiak cakes out. The Kodiak cakes has a variety of different grains, and it's just a add water mix. And the fried Spam, don't particularly like Spam plain, but I really like it if it's fried really crispy. I am trying to get away from eating canned meat, so this one will probably get replaced at some point, but right now it works for us. And then just a jar of the fruit spread. The next one is the Fiesta refried beans and tortillas. This was an idea that I found, which I thought was really interesting. I usually get the Old English cheese spread only at Thanksgiving or Christmas to put inside my celery sticks, but it works really well for a melted cheese. It gives it a nice sharp flavor. So this is kind of like a nachos type meal. I did try to store tortilla chips because I really like this with tortilla chips, but I found that they go rancid really fast. You can only keep them maybe a month, maybe 2 months. Didn't work for me because I didn't replace them often enough, and they don't taste very good when they're rancid, and they're not very good for you. So I decided that I would just do the tortillas, make my own tortillas. It tastes really good doing the bean dip with the tortillas, and you can also make chips with the tortillas. Once you make your tortillas, and you can cut the tortillas into triangles and bake them. If you have an oven, you can bake them until they're crispy and put a little salt on them, and so you can make your own. Beef stroganoff. This shows some home canned beef strips that I did. You can also do the canned beef that you can get canned beef at Costco. It's in 12-ounce cans, just like the chicken. It's in cubes, but it would work just the same. And this one you would add water. It's pretty good. Beef stroganoff typically has sour cream. Like I said, I tried the sour cream powder in this one too. I didn't like it, so I just do the high-fat evaporated milk, and it tastes pretty good. Pumpkin bean soup and cornbread. This recipe I really like. It's made with the white beans and pumpkin. It's a soup. It has curry powder in it. And the coconut milk. It has a very almost exotic taste. It's very a rich tasting soup. You're getting some really good vitamins from the pumpkin, and then the cornbread mix. I thought about this as I was looking through the PowerPoint last night, that we've been doing a lot of classes recently with Carol Depp, talking about the three sisters, which would be the beans, corn, and squash. And I thought this was interesting that this particular meal has the beans, corn, and squash. Pizza is a great food storage meal. You can make your crust. I'm not doing my pizza dough with the yeast. This has the yeast mixed in with the flour, but now I'm doing the natural leaven. So I just take my natural leavened yeast and just add a little bit of flour to it and roll it out to make my pizza crust. But you can make a good pizza. You can use the canned cheese. There's the ingredients to make a pizza sauce with a canned tomato sauce. I have canned mushrooms, canned olives, and in one of the bags is some dehydrated onions and peppers. Now you can make the cheese from the old powdered milk, or you can use fresh powdered milk. It really doesn't matter if it's old or fresh, but you can make the cheese and use that as a topping on your pizza, so you wouldn't have to use the canned cheese. And you can also make a sausage that's made with gluten or gluten flour, where it's the protein part of the wheat. Mix it with some seasonings and bake it, and crumble it up, and it tastes just like sausage. So you could even add that to it if you want. That's a little bit time consuming. It's not to make the gluten sausage. It's not fast. But if you wanted to spend an afternoon making it and putting it in the freezer, it would be a nice change. Chicken tetrazzini, it's kind of, I do this instead of spaghetti. It's like creamy spaghetti because it has the cream of chicken soup, evaporated milk. It's just really creamy. It's like creamy comfort food. And we like this recipe. Crockpot potatoes, you can either put it in a crock pot if you have power, or you can cook it in a sun oven, or you can cook it in a Wonder Box, which is kind of like a crock pot without electricity. It's got your dried hash brown potatoes, the cheddar cheese soup, cream of chicken soup, evaporated milk, and then just cut up. You don't have to put the Spam in it, but you can cut it up into little teeny chunks and mix it in there. It mixes in and really does taste good. Taco soup is one of my favorites. It's made with Velveeta cheese. This is actually a 2-pound package. You only need half of it. When I use it, I put the other half in the fridge and then use it within a few days to make another recipe, usually macaroni and cheese. But I do need to switch and just buy the 1-pound packages so that I'm not having to worry about refrigeration. The Velveeta cheese is shelf stable. It stays so you don't have to have it refrigerated. It's kind of like the canned cheese, and you can just buy it at the grocery store. But it makes a really nice, rich cheesy taco soup taste. Tuna noodle cashew. You can use almonds or cashews. I like to add the nuts just because it gives it a little crunch. It makes it just not be just an ordinary casserole, but it gives it just something special and makes you feel like you're having something more than just Tuesday night casserole. Bean and cheese enchiladas. This is just make your homemade tortillas. Put we like the black beans. You could use black or pinto. Put those in the middle. Put some of the cheese on it. The sauce, there's some seasonings in there to make enchilada sauce with the tomato sauce, and you just pour it over the top and bake it. It's pretty easy and it tastes really good. Beef goulash. This shows some canned ground beef that I did, and this was a recipe that my grandmother used to make a lot. It's just kind of macaroni with a little tomatoey sauce with corn in it and the meat, and it has the dried onions are actually in the bag with the macaroni, and the seasonings are also mixed in there. You don't have to have, like normally you would cook your macaroni and then drain it and then add your other seasonings. With this one, I just cook the macaroni in the amount of water, and I don't drain it because I feel like that I don't want to have to, I'm worrying about having a shortage of water, not being able to get a lot of fresh water. So I don't worry about draining it, so I have the onions and the seasonings are right in the bag with the macaroni, and I use that water that actually, any that's left is part of the recipe, so that I'm not wasting it. Split pea soup. it's probably not my favorite, but it's one of Jim's favorites, and so we have this on here. It has the split peas and also some barley is in the bag. The barley gives it kind of thickens it a little bit, and I think it just makes it have a little bit richer flavor. The Boston baked beans and brown bread, this is a recipe that I did recently with the Wonderbox class that we did last Saturday. It turned out so well, it was so easy, and the ingredients were all shelf stable that I did the brown bread for the class. Didn't know that you could cook bread in a Wonderbox, but you can. And the instructions reminded me of the brown bread that New Englanders typically will eat on a Saturday night with Boston baked beans. And so we tried it, it worked out well. And so this made it to the top 21 in our list of meals. If you'll notice that on this recipe, I show that it's with canned beans. Most of the recipes that I'm showing in this class is with canned or dried or dehydrated ingredients because I like them to be quick. I like them to be something that I could make in 15 or 20 minutes. I am working on another list of meals that would be using more of the dry beans and the whole grains, so that when all the canned ingredients are gone and I'm now down to the more long-term storage foods, that I will also have a variety of meals that I can use. And in that case, I would switch this recipe over to the dry beans, and it would work just as well with the dry beans instead of the canned. And the same with this one with the white chili, which is one that we really like. Shepherd pie, this was a recipe that I learned in junior high, and it's still one that I enjoy making. It has the canned ground beef here, and you put your green beans in, and you put now when in junior high we did it with tomato soup, but my husband doesn't eat tomato soup very well, so we do this one with cream of mushroom soup. Then you make this bag in front is the potato pearls, and you just mix that up, make your mashed potatoes, and put that over the top. And as you can see, a lot of these recipes are what I would consider comfort foods, things that to me are going to give me some comfort. This is chicken enchiladas. It's one of our favorites that we used for the conversion recipe, and we talked about that a little bit already. It shows it with the canned cheese and the evaporated milk instead of the sour cream. Clam chowder, the dried potatoes are in the bag to the back with the dried celery and the dried onions. The potato pearls in the front are used to help thicken it. It gives it a thickness rather so that you're not having to do the flour, butter thickening. The potato pearls give it a nice, rich thickening. Potato pearls have a butter flavor to them. Hawaiian Haystacks, I would probably not continue to store the chow mein noodles. They don't store well. They're kind of like the tortilla chips. So I don't know that I would worry about keeping very many, maybe just a little, but you wouldn't be able to have them for a whole year. I have the rice. Now, I do use brown rice, and I've not had a lot of problems. People say you can't store it for very long because it goes rancid, but we keep ours in our basement in a cold room, and I've been able to keep brown rice for quite a while. The white is coconut, and in the front is the dried onions, and I make the sauce. It has a little bit of a curry that is mixed in with the onions in the onion bag that I put in with the cream of chicken soup. Vegetable beef soup. This is actually the recipe that we did at the last Saturday's class, the Wonderbox. It turned out to be such a great tasting soup, and it was easy. You can just put it in a bag. It's made it to our list. 2 of our meals got tossed out. They were 2 that had been sitting on the shelf too long, and so they've been replaced by 2 new ones. But this has the dried onions, potatoes, and carrots in the bag in front. If I had dehydrated green beans and dehydrated corn, I would also use those. It's very simple, very easy soup, and using the beef broth. I store the beef broth and the chicken broth because I'm also getting the liquid so that it helps save my water. You can do bouillon if you want, and then you just have to make sure that you have the water to go with it. And macaroni and cheese, this was adapted from my grandmother's macaroni and cheese recipe, it's a baked macaroni. It's not the instant cook on the stove macaroni. And so You would either do it in an oven or a sun oven. It's comfort food. I really like it. This is where I would use the other half of the Velveeta cheese from the taco soup. Okay, so this shows a picture taken out of my pantry showing the bag meals there in the pantry so that they're just easy, ready for you to grab to make dinner for yourself or to take to someone else. Now, I can't put all of my meals in my pantry. Like I said, I usually just do the 21 that I put in there, and when they're gone, then we go and get the ingredients to make another 21. So the rest of the meal ingredients are in the storage area. I know some people will actually make up all their bag meals, and they have their bag meals in their storage area sitting on the shelf. I tried that and found that the bag meals take up a lot of room. They don't store as compactly and tightly. Our storage room isn't really big. And so for us, it works much better if we don't make up the bag meals in the storage room, but we just make them up as we put them into the pantry. A well-stocked pantry is definitely security. Now, it's important to learn how to use foods such as whole grains and legumes. One, you want to learn how to use them because they store very well. They're going to store pretty much indefinitely, so you can have those and not have to worry about rotating. You can know that you have them and they will be there for a long time if you need them. But you're also going to get more nutrition, and they don't cost as much as the can. Like, for instance, the canned beans cost more than if you do the dry beans. Dry beans are going to take you a little more time, but you definitely can save some money. Now, you want to make sure that you don't store any food that you don't use on a regular basis, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that when you are having a financial crisis, which you would be using your food storage, or if there's an emergency situation, neither one of these situations is a time that you want to be learning how to use something that you have stored. You want to have it be something that's very easy, that you can do, that you're familiar with, that you know how it works, that you don't have to be trying to figure something out when you're already stressed from the situation. Foods like whole wheat and dry beans, for example, they need to be introduced to the body gradually. If you were to start eating whole wheat or dry beans, that's all you ate, and you hadn't eaten them at all, you would have some discomfort, and you would not be a happy person. So you want to make sure that you are eating them regularly, even if it's just once a week. You want to be adding them to your diet so that your body can be used to them. Another reason is if you enjoy to eat some of these food storage items, well, you can get the extra things. Like, for instance, you can buy sour cream and put sour cream in your food storage chicken enchiladas to make it taste a little more creamy, a little more rich. When you can no longer get these items from the grocery store, the meals are going to be acceptable to you. You're going to be used to the taste. You're going to be used to the way that it looks and the way it tastes, and especially your kids. Kids can be kind of tricky to try and get them to eat something different, and so you want them to be able to be familiar with what you're cooking as well. Now, there is a saying that says, eat what you store and store what you eat. Now, you have to make sure that when you use this statement, you don't reverse it. If you store what you eat, you might not have the best nutrition. You might not have foods that are going to last the longest, because the typical American diet doesn't include the foods that would be life-sustaining under stressful situations. You want to make sure that you're storing foods that are rich in nutrients, such as the whole grains, the legumes, vegetables, and fruits. So you want to make sure that you're eating what you store and store what you eat, because you're storing the good, nutritious foods. If you're not storing whole grains now, you want to make sure that you start storing some whole grains and start using them a little bit at a time. Studies show that the whole grains are packed with nutrients, protein, fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and there's even a whole lot of other things that they're doing new studies all the time, finding the great benefits of the whole grains. In spite of the fact that a whole grain diet has been proven to reduce the risk of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and some forms of cancer, 95% of Americans don't eat enough whole grains. So it would be a good thing to start doing. And really great thing about whole grains is they store very, very well. You don't have to worry about rotating them as often. They store well, and you're getting the good nutrition. And typically they're not that expensive. Prices are going up on the grains, so they're not as good a deal as they used to be, but it still would be a good thing to have. In fact, almost a third of the people that were studied, they didn't eat any whole grains at all. So if you fall into that category, you might want to think about that maybe you should start looking into doing some changing to your diet so that you can get those benefits of the whole grains. Now, these grab-and-go meals that we've talked about are made using the ready available canned ingredients so that you can have the quick and easy meals. Usually the meal can be done in 10 to 20 minutes. I'm currently working on, as I mentioned before, another list of menu-driven meals, and that's kind of what we call this because it's menu-driven. We don't just store what someone says you should store, like you should, you should have 50 pounds of rice and 40 pounds of milk or something. We actually determine what we want to eat, and then that's what the food that we store based on the menu rather than just on some calculation. But I am working on trying to come up with a list of meals that are using the long-term storage ingredients so that it's mainly the whole grains and legumes. I do make my own tortillas. We use the whole grains in the cornbread. So I do use a lot of those, but I am working on doing some more where you're doing the whole wheat berries, some of the other grains and the different legumes, things that you can do with the long term. When all of your favorite things, all the canned foods, when they're all gone and you're down to the dry foods that keep a long time, you still want it to be tasty. You still want it to give you that feeling that you're eating something that's not only nutritious but that tastes good. You want things to taste good, especially for children and for older people. You want to regularly use and replace promptly your storage so that it can be rotated. It really should be rotated. The best way to do it is to use it daily and replace it promptly. The replace it promptly is kind of the tricky part. It's really easy to use it, a little bit harder to remember to go to the store and replace it. But if you can work out a system where you tell yourself that you have to do it either whether it's weekly or monthly or every 3 months, or if you go to the cannery, you might want to do it maybe every 6 months, but you want to make sure that you are replacing it so that you don't find that you have an emergency the day before you were going to replace all your food storage, and so that we don't have any. So you want to make sure that you're getting it replaced promptly. By using it, you're going to learn about your food preferences. You're going to find those meals that are the ones that sit on the pantry shelf the longest, and you don't really want to eat them, and so you don't want to have that being the one that you have to have. You're going to identify allergies. Somebody in your family might have some allergies, and this would be a better time to find out when you can make some adjustments and when you can replace those food items than when maybe your resources are limited and you don't have another option. You can find out the things that you like, the things that you don't like, and you can make those changes. Always add your new purchases to the back and move the older to the front. That way you're going to make sure that you're always using the items that have been there the longest. It's also the ones that have usually the lower price too. So you can just think, wow, I got a really good deal at the store today because I'm using this can of beans that I got for 30 cents. And now they're costing 45 or 50. So it's kind of a good way to think that you're saving money. You want to expand your menu to reduce appetite fatigue. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning. It's really important to have an expanded menu, not only for the appetite fatigue, but for better nutrition. The more variety you're going to have, you're going to be getting different nutrients from the different foods. But appetite fatigue is very real, and it can kill you if you don't pay attention, especially for the young children and older people. And it's not the whiny, oh, are we going to have spaghetti again? But it's a very serious, I'd rather starve than eat beans again. And this is very real, and it is something that I have learned to take seriously. We didn't get to the point that I'd rather starve than eat beans again, but I had that feeling when we didn't have a lot of variety. It's like, it was easy for me because I could just go to the store, or I could just take out a different bag and say, we're not eating those beans again. But it is something that would be very serious, especially for children or for older people, because they will not eat. They will lose their appetite and will not eat. So enjoy the savings. This food that you eat today is going to cost you less than any food purchases that you make today, because you will have bought it before. So it's not only a savings, it's more nutritious, and it can save you time. So, do we have any questions? Yes, Barbara.
With your meals, when you reassemble them in the bags again, do you use those Ziplocs again? Because you just have dry ingredients in them, or do you get it?
That's a good question. I often will use the same Ziploc bag again, as long as it's still in good shape and it's not compromised. With the beans, the baked beans and the brown bread, it has molasses, and I put molasses in the Ziploc bag. So, and the cornmeal, I put oil in a Ziploc bag. I wouldn't reuse those because they're a liquid in the Ziploc bag, but the dry ingredients, I do.
Notice any difference between the white wheat and the red wheat?
Repeat that with me.
Oh, yes. The question is, do I notice any difference between white wheat and red wheat? Yes, there is a difference, and let me tell you the difference. The end product is going to have a little bit darker color. It's not going to rise quite as high. It's going to have a little denser texture. The white wheat is going to be a lighter color. It will rise better, and it gives you a lighter product. But nutrition-wise, no.
Do they store equally well?
Yes. I have not found any difference in the way that they store.
Your red wheat also has a little stronger taste to it.
Oh,
than
that's
some of the
right,
white
yes.
wheat's another difference there. A little stronger taste.
You mentioned a leavening that was different than yeast. Can you tell me about that?
I mentioned a leavening that is different than yeast, and would I talk about this? Yes, and Caleb Warnock we had as a guest on our radio program, as well as we've had him come to our Saturday classes, and he taught us how to do the natural leavened yeast. It's the sourdough type product, only it doesn't taste sour. It's what the pioneers used. It's what they've used for hundreds of years before they invented the dry yeast that we have in the store. Basically what you do is you get the yeast from someone else. It's shared, and I share it, Caleb will share it. You save a little bit in the jar. You add warm water and flour, stir it up, let it sit for 4 to 6 hours, and it'll bubble back up again, and then it's ready to use, and you take it out and use it, and you just keep perpetuating it. Did that answer your question?
It's very similar to a sourdough.
Yes, it's very much like sourdough, except it doesn't have to be sour. There's different strains. So if you have a sourdough start, it is actually going to be more sour because it has the strains of bacteria there are going to give it a more sour taste. So the natural yeast doesn't have that sour taste and will stay more fresh tasting, almost a sweeter taste, as long as you keep feeding it regularly. If you let it go very long, then it will turn sour. But it's the same process of like doing sourdough. Mm-hmm.
There's 2 online questions about the availability of handouts, your recipes, instructions, and these things here.
Oh, good question. Jim has asked me to put this together into a book form. It will have the instructions, it'll have the graphs, it'll have the recipes, and then we're also going to bundle it with the DVD.
Yes.
So that we will have that available, and it will be soon.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. See if there's any last questions to show up. We'll see you both online here next Wednesday, next Tuesday, online through the audio cast and our live classes on Wednesday. So everybody have a great evening, and we will see you in the near future. Thanks very much, and good night.